5 o'clock on Tuesday afternoon, July 16th, 2024. I call this meeting of the Beltrami County Board of Commissioners to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is there any, can't see over the flowers. Is there any citizens wishing to address the board on an item that's not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on to approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Mr. Chair, I'd make a motion to approve the agenda with the following changes. Move item 7E to item 11A. That's the 2024 PILT fund appropriations. And then to remove items 8 and 9 from the regular agenda as they were tabled at the previous meeting. That's my motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Motion passes. Accept the motion to approve the consent agenda.
Make motion we approve the consent agenda
With
as amended. Yep.
as amended. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to the regular agenda, item number 10, resolution to participate in class action settlement on tax forfeited land sales. You got this one, Shane? All right. Jody's got your back, right?
Thank you, commissioners. I think there's a little presentation. I would like to start by saying that my first month or so at the job has been really enjoyable. It's been, different department heads have been huge in getting me up to speed, so helpful. It's really been enjoyable. So thank you. So now I'm here to talk about tax forfeit land sales and what that's going to look like moving forward for the county. I'm not sure how much the board has had discussions in the past, if Richard Moore ever brought any information. So I'm just gonna briefly go over what's happened up to this point. Well, there's a court case, Tyler versus Hennepin County. It was ultimately a Supreme Court ruling that happened on May 5th of 2023, this past year. And that court case was, so there was a plaintiff, Geraldine Tyler. She owed $15,000 in back taxes and some fees on a condo that she had in Hennepin County. The county followed the same forfeiture process that all of counties in Minnesota followed, legal at the time. They seized the condo and then they sold it for $40,000. Well, it went through the court system, went all the way to the United States Supreme Court, and they ruled in favor of the plaintiff, saying that Minnesota's forfeiture law process was not legal, and that the excess of $25,000 was actually a violation of the takings clause. So at that point, there was a little bit of a scramble. And so the Minnesota state legislature passed this past May, passed both a settlement fund to reimburse for losses that people had suffered over a period of time. And they also came up with a new law that dictates how that forfeiture process would work moving forward. So to break it down, there's three types of properties that come into play. The first one is forfeitures that were prior to 2016 are not addressed by the settlement. The new law doesn't apply. Those are prior to the look back period. Forfeitures between 2016 and 2023, the settlement that they appropriated that $109 million for applies to properties during that period. And then forfeitures this year and beyond, the settlement does not apply to them, but the new law that they created does apply to them. for this discussion, we're only going to be talking about this second group, the ones that were forfeited in 2016 and 2023. So the county basically has three options. You can opt into the settlement fund, you can opt out of the settlement fund, or you can choose to take no action. And if you choose to take no action, you automatically will be, by default, opting into the settlement on August 1st. I felt it was prudent to not just, in essence, make the decision myself and not say anything and have it go through. And for you guys to be able to make the decision as a county after reviewing some of the facts and actually tell the state, this is how we'd like to proceed. Okay, so the first choice, opting into the settlement. So for any of those properties forfeited in that look back period, 2016 to 2023, what do we have to do? Well, we have to make a good faith effort to sell all the remaining properties from that time period that we have in inventory. If we do sell the properties and we sell them by 2027, the county gets to retain 25% of the proceeds or the profits. We still get to deduct any expenses, any fees, back taxes that were owed, but we get to keep 25% of the profits. If they're sold by 2029, the county still retains some money, but they a reduced amount. So the principle here is that the state wants this thing to move along. They want these properties that are involved in the settlement to get moved. One thing to note is that properties that we classify as conservation land don't have to be sold. And then the state ultimately, if we opt into the settlement, is responsible for all other claims that would happen on other properties that are involved in tax forfeiture. As I already said, opting into the settlement agreement is the default that would automatically happen on August 1st. So the other main option here is opting out of the settlement. So why would I not recommend that we do that? Well, the first negative is that the specifics of the state settlement would no longer apply to our county. So the stuff that they kind of negotiated and worked through the legal process, went before the legislature, they made decisions on what should the look back period be, how should we value these properties. All of those things would have to be re-litigated on a case-by-case basis that would come before us at the county, which could be a pretty large burden. So we would be independently responsible for all of those. And then there's lots of unknowns. So when they went through the settlement process, they came up with the time period of 2016 to 2023. So there's nothing stopping somebody from saying, hey, I had a claim in 2015, maybe we should try that out. We would again be responsible to litigate that. Or if something during the sale process, if a property had an estimated market value of say $40,000, we were only able to get $15,000 for it. It is certainly possible that somebody would claim the $40,000 would be a better representation of what was being taken from them. We would also have to litigate that. So what's the positive? Well, the only positive in my estimation is that we potentially get to keep 100% of the proceeds from any of those parcels that are remaining in inventory, which comes up to be approximately $150,000. And that's if no claims are made against them. So here's the properties that we're considering or that are considered in the settlement. There's about 50 properties. There's a bunch of gibberish that doesn't mean too much, but this column is the potential liabilities of each of those each of the properties that we hold and would have to sell. Or so you can see in the column that's two to the left, three to the left. There's some that we still hold in inventory and there's some that we've already sold. So if we look at the very first one under 2022, the Hornet Township property, the total owed on that property is about $5,000. Estimated market value right now, it's a home on 5 acres, I believe. Estimated market value is $58,000. So our potential liability is about $53,000 on that property. Not a huge deal realistically because we still own the property. We can still sell that property and the liability doesn't happen until we sell it. But if you look on the bottom of that list, In the 2022 category, you have the city of Wilton. Parcel 87.00128. The total owed on that property was $2,766. We ultimately sold it for the sale price of $68,000. So those are funds that we've now had in our account used. If there's a claim against that property and someone comes back and says, well, I was an heir or whatever the case is, we would be on the hook for that $65,000. So ultimately, all of that adds up as it's kind of broken down to this potential liability in the very bottom corner of about $950,000. So a substantial chunk of change. Would all of these properties have a claim against them? Certainly not. Some, even that city of Wilton property that someone passed away with no heirs, no known heirs. But when you start talking about $65,000, heirs kind of seem to come out of the woodwork sometimes on those things. So the potential liability is real. So now the properties that we hold in inventory, I tried to highlight in red. And as you can see, in 2022, we have the first one's a potential liability of $52,000. The second one's a potential liability of $58,000. Those are really the only two big properties that we still own out of this entire group. Both of those are houses. They hadn't been sold yet because, as I understand, there was some difficulty in gaining possession or having people leave the houses. And so it took longer to unload them. So they haven't been sold yet. They're now empty, able to be sold. But if you work down the list, the city of Ten Strike for $14,000, that one's already been reallocated to the county highway department for road right of way. So we don't have to sell that one. If you work down, there's just little tiny figures, all less than $5,000, all the way to, in 2017, there's a Nebish property that's valued at $16,800. That's a 10-acre chunk, really nice piece of property, but it's surrounded by county land and it provides access into the county land. That's been deemed conservation land that we don't have to sell that one either. So all I'm getting at is really the only two parcels that we're concerned with are these two homes that are going to be sold in 2022. Those are the only ones that we really have a chance to make some money on. And they're both homes with families. Very likely there will be a claim against them. So any money that we receive off of those is likely going to be passed through after we litigate it in court of how much should be passed through, will be passed through to those individuals. And so our total potential cost is the very last line in the bottom right corner. So if we sold every one of those properties that we have in inventory for the estimated market value, we would make about $158,000. I've already illustrated that very likely the two properties that are worth $110,000 out of that group would likely all just be passed through money anyway. Out of the money that we make, if you remember back to the previous slide, we have to provide the state with 75% of the funds that we take in. And that would be to offset their losses in that $109 million fund that they had set up. So that's to refund that fund. So if everything went perfectly, we sold everything for market value, we would owe the state $120,000, which would all come out of sales that would be occurring. So we're not actually writing a check out of funds that we already have in possession, but we would be reimbursing them out of proceeds that we get out of sales. We, out of that settlement, would take home about $40,000. So ultimately, I think the risks greatly outweigh the potential benefit. Kind of wanted to display some of those numbers for you guys so you can make a good decision on it. But my recommendation, and I believe that recommendation is echoed by county administrator and the county attorney, and also by almost every other county in the state choosing to opt into the settlement, would be my recommendation that you would pass the resolution in front of you.
Questions for Shane?
Greg?
Greg?
Chair, not a question, just thanks for bringing it to our attention and explaining it as thoroughly as you did. It's nice for us to have a understanding of these types of things, even though it is pretty much a no-brainer by the looks of it. So, so I'd go ahead and make a motion that we approve the resolution, Mr. Chair.
Motion's been made to accept the resolution to opt into the settlement.
Yeah, thank you.
Is there a second? Any discussion? I would just say that, I was doing a little due diligence this morning on this issue and I watched the House of Representatives when they took this bill up in 2023 and there was not a no vote. I mean, every single legislator thought that that was a well-crafted piece of legislation. So with that, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Shane. With that, we'll move on to 11A, which is the Auditor Treasurer approval of 2024 PILT Fund appropriations. Was there a question?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I guess I asked that this be removed because I had some questions and maybe concerns about, it's hard to see with those flowers. I do appreciate, the kind gift, but I like to look at my colleagues too as I'm talking. I'm kind of look for it on my note on my packet here real quick. So it's my understanding that the applications were submitted and these are PILT applications, and PILT is payment in lieu of taxes. And I asked the auditor for information if there are any policies in regards to the PILT funds. And what I received is the consolidated conservation policy, which is kind of similar, I guess, to, in short, is the CONCON fund. In short, it is similar to the PILT. But I believe that the PILT is kind of specific and geared towards public safety and economic development. And CONCON funds are for capital improvement and economic development. So reviewing the applications, I seen that there was an application in there for improvements to a town hall, window improvements to a town hall. And I, being part of the PILT CONCON committee until recently, we have always kind of shied away from allocating money towards infrastructure, building infrastructure improvements. So I'm kind of curious to know or ask or find out how this kind of fits into, well, we as the committee just kind of went away from, in years past, and then how it kind of got approved to get approval from the boards. So my concern is if we allow town halls to make improvements with these funds, that each and every township that is in the CONCON PILT area is going to be requesting monies for improvements to their town halls, which would, wouldn't allow money for projects that really fit the purpose of public safety and economic development. So, Mr. Chair, if I can, you get a little.
Do you want to address that, Jody?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I want to say that the policy that I sent to you was for a consolidated conservation committee. And that committee, if you read further down on the policy, handles both the PILT grants, which are payment in lieu of taxes, and the CONCON grants. And those grants come from timber sales on those forfeited lands. So it's one committee that covers both grants. So one policy with both grants included on the policy. when they were reviewing the application for the windows at the town hall. This is a town hall that has a lot of get-togethers. It's a town hall that is actively being used. And they felt it was a safety issue that those windows were in such disrepair that they had the ability to fall out and injure a person, causing a liability. So it was considered a public safety issue for those windows at the town hall.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, yes, sir.
I guess I'm kind of in the same boat as Commissioner Sumner on this, so I would hate for this to be a set a precedent, slippery slope. All of a sudden, town halls are gonna be coming forth requesting PILT dollars every year for improvements. I could maybe see the argument it's a public safety concern, but that might also be a stretch. So I guess, what's an option or two as far as setting this particular project aside and looking at it a little more for other funding options or?
Maybe under the con funds, because con funds are more specific to capital improvement and economic development. Public safety, I mean, to me, ensuring roads are, being, tend to is a public safety thing. I just don't, it's hard for me to see how windows would be a public safety thing.
And
I always try to be supportive of the committee and what they, in their recommendations. I have, year after year, but to me, this is kind of a stretch, that, I mean, we've had conversations about the old Skellier School, we denied them, funding to make improvements there. We denied, there was a church that also has, that requested funding for improvements, flooring, kitchen, because they offers weddings and reunions and get-togethers and summer, and we as the committee denied that. So I mean, that's like, how can we say no to one and yes to another? And where's the fairness, I mean?
so first of all, I'll answer Commissioner Gould's question. The authority lies in the board. This is a citizen committee that makes a recommendation to the board. They scour over the applications, get citizen input from others in the area, but ultimately it is your decision. That being said, as far as precedents, there already is precedent, like Commissioner Sumner said. There have been some that have been denied. There have also been some that have been approved because they don't spread a equal look on every project. They go into how is it going to be used? What is the community support for this project? Is there other funding sources also that show more community support? So they do take it project by project, but ultimately it is you as the board's decision to either confirm their recommendations or to change their recommendations.
Oh,
Craig?
Mr.
Mr.
Chair,
Chair,
Just a minute, Craig.
I feel like, there could be some precedent potentially from what Commissioner Sumner and Commissioner Gould are saying, but I also feel like we have to put our faith in the local community members that are part of that citizens committee. And as well as I think you maybe took over that role from Commissioner Sumner this year. And so I think, Monday morning quarterbacking, what that local committee has come up with. And, we've trusted their opinion for many, many years, and to chop it up now, I think that, could be a real negative thing to that citizen committee. So I'd like to make a motion that we approve it as presented.
Is there a second?
I will second it because as far as I know, as long as I've been on this as commissioner, we have not tried to intervene with whatever decision that committee has made. I have a question, but I would second.
Okay, so a motion's been made and seconded to adopt the PILT money as presented. Now we can proceed to more discussion. Tim, did you have something to follow up?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I did talk to the Township Supervisor, Ray Berger, over the weekend after I reviewed, the agenda, and he seemed kind of concerned as well, I mean, we talked about, how is this fair, where's the fairness, and he said he can see both sides and he would be okay with either way, being that it was the town secretary treasurer that submitted the application. So, I mean, I think, to respond to Commissioner Anderson, that, we haven't really went over it. I think it's because as the commissioner that represents, the area, I'm well aware of how the process worked, how, the conversations, things like that. So, I mean, I don't think there was really a need to inquire why we didn't do, this in the past, but knowing what I know, I do have concerns, and it's kind of unfortunate that my colleagues, don't trust, or consider what I have to say as the one that represents this area. I mean, that's all I have.
Richard, my question was, that we had representation there by this body. And I'm not, were you there or somebody? Okay. That's my concern because then again, Beltrami County was represented. And, I know whenever I'm involved with public, if there's a safety concern, we try to take care of that safety concern because there's always litigation that could follow that if we didn't. So I don't know if I was sitting on the committee, if I'd make a different motion or not, but as I see it now, it's one of those, the decision was kind of made. We've had hands off before on this, and so I still stand by my second.
Okay, so I wanted to wait until everybody weighed in, and I'll weigh in because I was the one of us that was there. And it appeared to me that when we were in the Grigla area, they had a much more difficult task because they had grant requests of almost double of what they had money for. I kind of sat back because I was new. Jody had been there before. And so I just really kind of wanted to observe. What I saw that happened there was, it was really kind of cool to watch those people work with each other and to say, okay, well, I'm okay with giving up this and we can give that. And they had a robust discussion about what they wanted to see with that money. And at the end of the day, that was absolutely unanimous that this is the way they wanted that money spent. So my question to you, Commissioner Sumner, is you've been on those committees in the past. And when you were sitting in those meetings, did you interject yourself as a commissioner and say, no, you can't do that? Or did you just, I'm just trying to learn from you because after you abdicated your responsibility on that committee, I had no choice but to pick it up. So I'm just wondering if you sat and listened to these folks and they did not horse trading, but they brought up the merits of each of these proposals. I was absolutely amazed. There was no contention whatsoever. I mean, it was their will. And I can't see how I would want to overrule that will that they had. I mean, it wasn't, if I had thought, if there was any contention, I would report that. But Jody, it was unbelievable. They really did a nice job of conversing with each other, talking through. And at the end of the day, this is what they wanted to do. I don't know how we can tell them, well, the hell with you. This is what we're gonna do. So I guess I'm saying that I will be in favor of this. Any other discussion? Call for the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you, Jody. Moving on to any additional items.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Mr. Gould.
I'd like to move to untable the two resolutions that were originally on today's agenda that were on
Can we take take them one at a time, Joe?
Yes.
Okay.
Um,
So,
to speak to the,
okay, so you have a motion on the floor to untable the resolution of support for National Minority Mental Health Month. Is that correct?
Correct.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Chair.
Yep, go ahead. There's a second. Yep, we have a motion and a second. Yep.
I would just like to encourage support for this. Doesn't cost anything. July is National Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. And since Beltrami County has roughly 20% minority population, mostly indigenous folks. And the county serves clients with mental health. It seems appropriate that we would it's just something kind of nice to do to create awareness and be supportive of folks in the minority community with mental health needs that the county serves.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chair, I would support this because I mean, I think over the years, especially the past few years, I don't know how many times I've heard, my colleagues mention, they have concerns about mental health and mental among, our community. So I would encourage and suspect that we would have a majority vote in favor of supporting this resolution.
Greg?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, thank you. It's definitely not against the resolution, except for the fact that it singles out only minorities. We should be for all mental health, not just minorities. That's the contention I had with it. It should be National Mental Health Month, not National Mental Health Minority Month. That's the issue I had with it. It shouldn't be just, like we don't care about the rest of the mental health.
Mr. Chair.
That's
So-
the part that I had a problem with.
Okay.
Mr. Chair. So is there a national mental health month? Maybe that's something that you can bring forward when it is National Mental Health Month?
Provide this one to say that.
Well, I mean,
I believe there is, but I'm not sure.
yeah, so I mean, well, I'm not gonna revise it,
I'm just kidding.
but I'm encouraging you, if it is something that,
We don't necessarily need to support every resolution that's available.
well, I mean, that's your prerogative, whether minority, I mean, I guess, I'm not too sure what the issue is with minority, but I call for the vote.
Go ahead.
I said, it's not the issue with the minorities, it's the issue that we're essentially excluding all the other mental health by saying only minorities are what we care about with this resolution.
Mr. Chair, I call the question.
Oh, I didn't get to say anything. Really wanted to have I always like to give you guys, and I like to get my last say, but if he called the question,
You call that question.
Then
he called for the question. That's unfortunate. I would have liked to have had a last
Well,
word.
this is for the table. We still have to vote on. support the resolution itself.
All right, so the question's been called. All those in favor of taking the resolution for National Minority Mental Health Month resolution to take it off the table, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye.
I put aye, but, taking. it
Okay,
off
so it's off, it is
I wanted
come.
to hear what you had to say.
So it is, we have removed that from the table. At this time, then let's take that up.
Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion to support the resolution in support of National Minority Mental Health.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All right, I would like to make a comment. I'm really concerned about as we go forward as a board. I think it's awesome, Joe, that we can raise awareness to different issues. I think we can do that by maybe talking about them during our commissioner comments. My concern is that we would, if we adopt this resolution, it says that the board has to encourage all residents to participate in activities and initiatives that promote awareness, education, and solidarity. And further, that Beltrami County commits to working with community partners to address the mental health needs of minority populations, reduce stigma, improve access to culturally competent mental health services. My concern is there someone out there, when we make a resolution like this, that's going to come back and say, you guys didn't do what you said you were going to do. And all of a sudden now we're under some sort of liability that if we had just said, I'd like to mention that it's National Minority Mental Health Month. I think I'd love to, let's just make sure that we support that and then we move on. We're not under any obligation as a county to have to take any particular action. And it gives us the ability to recognize, whether it's whatever the cause of the day is for that month. So that's my concern. It has nothing to do with mental illness. It has nothing to do with minority. It has to do with obligating the county in a resolution like this that could potentially leave some liability. And further, I just think we start setting a precedent of every month, there's a cause of the month, many causes of the month every month, and it takes staff time to have to put these together, to put them in our packets. Whereas if we would just make a mention during commissioner comments about that to raise awareness, and you have done that in the past, and I thought that was wonderful that you did it that way. I'd encourage us to do it that way in the future, but that's just my thoughts. Yeah, Joe.
I don't think we have to worry about any of that kind of liability stuff you mentioned, because we do this as a county. This is already, in the mission of the county. We have staff working on this every day because the county serves these folks already. And a lot of us, just by having conversations with people, we're doing that work. So I wouldn't worry about any liability. It's a non-binding resolution. The overall point is just to create awareness of the issue and just be generally supportive. So I don't think we have to worry about a lawsuit or anything like that. Regarding, we could do one of these every month. Yeah, sure.
You could do multiple every month.
We don't have to.
I would hope that we wouldn't.
See that, Mr. Chair. But feel free to bring any forward yourself, as long as it fits into the purview of county operations. So I guess that would be my response.
Any further comments? Seeing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Aye. Motion fails. Moving on, any other additional business?
Your chair.
Oh, we got another one.
Yeah, I know, but we have to do it this, we have to do it this way.
I move to untable the resolution regarding support for Disability Pride Month.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion on untabling the motion. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye.
with the first group.
Okay, so motion passes. That is off the table.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
I'll move support for the resolution for Disability Pride Month.
is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
similar, the county serves folks with disabilities, and July is Disability Pride Month. It's a nonpartisan resolution that doesn't cost anything, just is a nice thing to do to show some general support to our folks with disabilities that are served by the county. So I would encourage support for this resolution.
any further comments? I would just echo what I said on the earlier one. I'm just not in favor of doing these kinds of resolutions, and I certainly have nothing against anybody with disability. And I think it's wonderful that we raise the awareness of Disability Pride Month. I think that's awesome. But I think that as a county, I'm against doing these kinds of resolutions, so I will be against that.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
roll call vote, please.
roll call's been called. Commissioner Sumner,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson,
Yes.
Commissioner Gosvig,
No.
Commissioner Gould,
Yes.
Commissioner Carlson, no. Motion passes. All right, moving on to any other additional items? How about legislative and lobbying issues? Let's, who wants to go first? Jim, anything?
Oh, yeah, I have tons. And I'm looking forward to filibustering the legislative lobbying issues and commissioners report this evening. I had the opportunity to attend the 2024 NACO annual conference. And right here, I have the proposed policy resolution and platform changes that the NACO board has heard and passed. And as a member of the NACO board, I'd like to read through all 87 pages. Yeah, I think dinner should be on its way. I think one proposed resolution that may be of interest to you, Commissioner Carlson, is the Medicaid inmate exclusion policy in the federal Social Security Act. The proposed policy, National Association of Counties urges Congress to amend the Medicaid inmate exclusion policy in the Social Security Act, allowing pretrial detainees to access Medicaid services while awaiting trial.
Is that the first time they've had that in the platform, or is this?
No, it's continuous. It's something that NACO has been working on for quite some time, well, you know how Congress is. I mean, it's hard for them to agree on anything, but I'm hoping that with the help of NACO and county commissioners, nationwide, that we can express, the importance of how this policy really affects, local taxpayers and counties, and hopeful that maybe they will hear someday and provide some sort of assistance. There was a lot of good information that I heard while attending, the conference. A lot of good, we were talking about, reimbursement rates for volunteers. The finance committee approved that almost unanimously. Maybe it was unanimous to move forward to the full board. We talked about immigration, there's suicide prevention, AI. There's just so much. I mean, to be honest, I think the annual conference was a lot better than the Ledge conference. There was more information in regards to bridging divides. I thought this was a really cool presentation, tools for county leaders to overcome division and foster collaboration. I think in the past month, I mentioned that this past year has probably been the most difficult year as a county commissioner, because oftentimes we don't see eye to eye. And it's my hope that, maybe we accept, our differences and learning to see that we, agree to disagree, understanding that we have different perspectives. Maybe, even though we don't agree, maybe we could still continue to support each other. So that was a good presentation. I know in the past, we were talking about AI and how that really affects, or how it could affect, counties and what we do. And there was a good presentation about AI. I mean, there's still mixed feelings about it being good. There's, mixed feelings about it being bad, so, maybe it's something that we can learn to see how it works for us and what exactly works for us. So, yeah. So yeah, that was my commissioner's report. So any questions? If not, thank you.
Richard? No. Okay. Greg?
Several meetings, the One Watershed, One Plan Policy Committee meeting, and I asked them at our next meeting to give us an update on what all the projects that they've done and where they're at. I know we're a little bit behind financially on using the funding and getting projects implemented as the project was, or the whole process was getting off the ground. And so hopefully we'll have some pictures, maybe a tour, that kind of thing after our next meeting, which would be this fall. I don't remember the exact date at this point, but had Emergency Communications Board meeting up in Thief River Falls. That was just a pretty typical one. We had a meeting, Commissioner Carlson and I both attended at Northern Town Hall regarding the County Road 20 and concerns about the road right away from some of the residents along there, and had a real good presentation. Bruce came and did a presentation for the residents, answered a lot of questions, kind of went over the plan and so on and so forth. Had a fair board meeting last night. Everything's pretty well on track for the fair. Sunday event is still in question, I believe, but just had some issues with the people, what type of, last year we had a Baja thing, but there was some issues with that on Sunday, so not sure what we're going to have, if anything, on Sunday. And then had a solid waste committee meeting this morning and found out not so great news that the city engineering had determined that the roof on the transfer station building was not able to support the re-roofing plan that we had. We had planned on just putting panels that had insulation on them right over the existing roof, but the structure is not deemed strong enough to do that. So now we're looking at getting some updated bids for replacing the roofing, and so we'll stay tuned on that. That's my report. Thank you.
Joe?
Yes, few meetings recently, by CAP Board of Directors. We were able to give the staff a 3% cost of living raise at our last meeting. I attended the Housing Trust Fund meeting last week, and Community Health Assessment meeting this morning, which was a lot of the information we heard from Amy during our health board meeting today. I was gone 2 weeks ago. I was at a teachers conference and training in Philadelphia. It was pretty neat to be, in our nation's,
The city of
First
brotherly love.
yeah, I won't tell you the name of the neighborhood we stayed in, but it was pretty cool to see all the historic sites, over the 4th of July holiday and get some CEUs for my full-time job, my other full-time job. And then, that's pretty much it for recent meetings. I did want to put a plug in for the Ridgeway picnic that's going on right now. I think that goes until 6:30, so there's still some time to go over there and meet with, some folks um, but I didn't see, any of my fellow commissioners on unicycles over the past.
The mayor probably was.
But,
Have you ridden one?
no.
I've
I
never
can't.
tried.
I'm not gonna do that. I can't do that. I had a friend in high school that was a master at it. I tried once and it was a disaster, but that was pretty neat to have that going on in town too. So, that's it.
Joe, I've got a question for you on the housing fund. How's that going in terms of, I mean, we've got a lot of money to spend. Are we gonna, will we have an update or?
It's mostly informational still, presentations by, experts in the field. Dave Hengel was there, at our last meeting and Sandy Henham and there were some developers at the last meeting. We're just kind of in education mode right now, learning from a lot of, people that work in the industry. I think at our next meeting, there's supposed to be, some recommendations put together as some options for us to look at as far as how to put those dollars to use. So I'll have more of an update after that meeting.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, thanks. I was able to meet with Caleb and Northern Township. And as part of his growing process, he's getting out and about and meeting with folks, especially in all the townships. And so they wanted to know if I knew anybody in Northern Township, and of course I did. So I went out there with him and he met with Chris Lane. And it was interesting because I think if Caleb had a shell, he doesn't have it anymore. I said, I'll meet you in the parking lot a few minutes before so we could go in together and I could introduce him. Well, I figured I better get there 5 minutes early just to be on the safe side. He was already in, sitting down, talking with Chris. So I think Caleb's going to be just fine. Last Tuesday, do we have visual on this for the Concon meetings? So too bad Jody had to leave. So we found out that going up 89 to get to the town hall, the mini town hall, that it was going to be a challenge because they were taking out culverts, right? Well, Ray, and I'm sure Commissioner Sumner,
There it is.
So he says, all you got to do is when you get to the tower, keep going straight. And he said, it'll just be a dirt road. You have to drive on a dirt road. Well, this was the dirt road we were on for about 10 miles. And so we just wanted to kind of give you a little bit of humor about getting up there. It was,
Grouse?
Yeah.
we saw a lot of deer. We did see a lot of deer. Thank you for that, Diane. It was interesting going to the Concon meetings and it was really interesting to watch the give and take between those township supervisors and especially in the Grigla Fort Town area where they had so much that they had to clear out. When we got to Kelly or Washkish, they only had about $8,000 of requests over and above their funding. And one township supervisor just looked at the other one and said, I really think you need to try this dust control stuff. He said, I'm willing to give up 8,000 of my money so you can try it. And it was just like, wow, that was just these township supervisors working together. It was pretty cool. So it was a real pleasure for you to be able to do that. And then take those side roads was kind of cool. Craig mentioned the town hall. There was actually some folks from Craig's district there that have to drive through Birchmont Beach that don't live there. And so their perspective is obviously a little bit different than those that live there. Bruce did another wonderful job of explaining what they can, what they can't do, the state regulations that they have to work with. And he did a good job of fielding the questions. And then Mark Fuller from the engineering firm that's tasked with actually drawing out the blueprints on how to make the road was there, and he answered a lot of questions, and he did a really good job. And I think at the end of the day, you know, at least people had some answers to questions. It's unfortunate that maybe 7 or 8 years ago, when they could have done something about it, it didn't happen. But it was that long ago that decision probably had to be made about what was going to happen with the road and diversion of traffic. And so it's just, the horse has been out of the barn for too long. So that's,
Also cleared up issues with some of the people that had, you know, questions about the sewers project versus the roads project and that.
yeah, so that cleared that up. So that was good. And then finally, I had chat about today, and I already mentioned that Amy was a rock star. She did the county proud by being on there, and Kev asked her a bunch of questions, and she did a great job talking about about our community, our public health board and what was coming up. So Amy, thank you. Appreciate that. That's all I got.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So I'm curious when it comes to the pill committee, you know, I really enjoy, you know, I enjoyed, you know, the meetings. I enjoyed the
You can have them back.
committees. Well, I think truthfully, to be honest, you know, maybe there should be some sort of, and I hope I have your support, some sort of more structured policy. I mean, I have concerns about the committee because every single member of the committee puts in a grant application. So, I mean, of course, they're going to be jockeying, well, I'll give you this, give me that. And how fair is that to the community that may really need the funds, you know? So that's my
Let me
concern.
answer that question, because when that got up and they were like, oh my gosh, we have to shed about $40-some thousand of requests.
Mhm.
And then Jody helped them go back to, this is the priorities that you guys set. And so that's what did guide them forward with that.
Yeah. Oh, well, they're a great group, you know, I mean, we've been doing that for years, but I mean, I have a concern. It's yeah. I'm hoping that someday that we can develop, I mean, we developed a policy for commissioners, you know, I believe you want to have something in place in writing, you know, a little bit more structured. And how fair is it to others that a group of folks that submit applications can deny somebody that submits an application and they're not on the committee, you know? There is no fairness to that. For example, the Kellier Library. You know, we all got an email about the Kellier Library, you know, looking for $10,000. They submit a grant, you know, every year, but each one of them committee members submit a grant as well. And their grant comes first before any other, anybody else's grant request. So, I mean, there is no fairness in that.
They're looking for county budget money.
Yeah.
They're not part of KRLS.
No,
And that wasn't a con-con, that was a request for. Upcoming schedule. Now, our next meeting will be August 6th, starting at 3 o'clock for work session, followed by a 5 o'clock board meeting. And then the second meeting in August will be August 20th, same 3 o'clock work session. And coming up on August 6th will be, Craig will be at Chatabout. Joe, you'll got August 20th. And we've got August 14th coming up. We had July 10th. We already went to, you had the July management team meeting. Richard, you got the August 14th. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you.